This time, I want to take a look at modifyResponse, the counter or the yang to the yin of modifyRequest. ModifyResponse is essentially taking the response that's coming back from the search API, and for example, I'm taking a look at the K-search is the right thing to look for under fetch XHR. So if I reload the page, here's my search request. If I look at the headers, it's using my search URL to Klevu. If I look at the payload, it's passing in my API key, and here's my record query, which is basically what we were looking at in our last video about modifyRequest and all the various settings. So if I wanted to modify anything about this, I can just go ahead and modify it in modifyRequest. What comes back, however, this is what's coming back. I'm getting meta query results. From there, I'm getting an array of product list, content list, and this other thing. And each one of these, here's the filters that came back. So I've got tags, size, brand, tags, size, brand, etc., etc. I also have records. I have metadata. So here it tells me that the number of results was 12. It tells me that the total results found was 450. It tells me things like the offset is 0. That's the reason why I'm on pagination page number 1. If I go to page number 2 and I take a look at that request and I take a look at my product list and my metadata, I'm still looking at a number of results 12, but this time the offset is 12 out of those 450 products. So that starts me off at product number 13, 14, 15, so on and so forth until I get to the 24th product. That's what I'm looking at in this request. I could technically use modifyRequest and modify that offset if I wanted to, right? So if I take a look at the request itself for product list settings, in here, there's an offset. I could have changed that to anything. But anyway, I digress. The records that are coming back, this is the common thing that most people want to use or that customizations require a modifyResponse for. So once we get the data back, and it's, let's say, for example, the very first product has a sale price of $39 for this page number 2. If I go back to page number 1, remember this was the one product that was less than $39, so it was $32. If I look at that request, go into product list, go into the records, go into the first one, and if I look at the price and if I look at the sale price, basically sale price in Klevu world is the actual selling price, and price is more like the MSRP. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not. If it wasn't the same, then that's where you would have a strike through and then you know, that kind of thing, right? But anyway, we've got this. I also have the ID of the product. I'm going to copy that into my clipboard. I'm going to go into my modify code. I'm going to paste it in here, and it is a string, so I'm going to put it in quotes. And for right now, I'm just going to comment it out. Because if I come back to our documentation for modifyResponse and I look at the examples in here, I'm just going to grab this first example of modifying data points. And I'm going to paste that in. I like mine this way. Essentially what it's doing is it's saying, hey, I want to modify the response for who? For landing. Here's the familiar function of data and scope being passed in. And then I'm looping through my helper, my each helper, and saying, hey, for every data, template, query, product list, result, every one of those, I want to iterate through them and call each one of them product. And if the index happens to be 5, which is the index in that array, then I want that product to have a sale price of $999. I'm going to modify this. I'm going to say if product.id is equal to this string. then I want the sale price to be $999. So I'm going to hit save. And sure enough, I have a sale price of $999 because I modified the response. If I come back to that diagram that I showed you guys earlier in one of the earlier videos, I wanted to explain to you how this is all really tying together, right? So Klevu core loads all the utilities. It builds the base object. That gets cloned as quick as landing, etc., etc. We run through our before activation, which could modify the thing so that it could set or replace templates and helpers. And we haven't gotten to chains yet, but there's other stuff. Then we have some kind of trigger. If it's on the search page, it's on the page load. It reads the URL, it finds out what the term is, and then it performs a search. If it's quick, it's on the key up event. As you're typing, there's a focus event. As you click on the input, it triggers to open up the thing. Then that causes a request to be made. We run through our modifyRequest. We looked at that in the last video. Now we're doing the Klevu modifyResponse. The response was never changed. It is what it is. However, we do change that copy of the data, what's in memory, and then that's what actually gets processed. There's stuff that's actually happening to prepare that data to be rendered on the page. And I want to explain that to you. We'll get to that in a second. Then we render the template. So that processing of the data happens after we modified the response, and it's after we receive the response. So it goes in that order. The reason why I want to call this out is because it's very interesting, and this is going to lead into that chain thing that we were talking, or that I've been alluding to. We haven't talked about it at all, but I want to explain it to you. Data here, I can do something like console.log, and I could say data. This is a console log, and I'm just even going to write down, this is modify response, comma. Oops, comma in the wrong place. There we go. So I've got my modify response, and then I'm running through my code that we already saw is just changing the price for that one product that matches that thing. This could have been looking through the tags to see if the product has this thing, and if it does happen to have a particular tag. Like, for example, let's just do that just for giggles. I'm going to look at the records that were responded or that were returned. I could look through the category and see if there's a particular category on this product, like best-selling Bangladesh, and say something to the effect of if product.category .index of and best-selling Bangladesh. I copied a double quote. There we go. So if that is not equal to -1, meaning that it is actually there, is it that I have one too many? I do have one too many. There we go. So if that is the case, then instead of adding a sale price, I want to add something like my new made up attribute. And then now this is, I don't know, let's just leave it at the 999. So I'm going to copy that. I actually don't need it yet, but I just want to show you where I'm going with this. Specifically, I wanted to look at data. If I come back to the console, here's my modify response, and here's data. So data in that function, in that modify response, is context, local overrides, request, response, scope, template, and that's it. And inside of those, there's all these various things. Okay, that's what data is there. If I come back to my customization, and then I don't do this one, And instead, I do Klevu.beforeActivation. Also for landing. Function, data, scope. Again, you don't have to worry about memorizing this because chances are you're just going to copy and paste from somewhere. But here I want to console.log that same data from before activation. And while we're at it, we might as well take a look at modifyRequest. And I'm even going to duplicate this one and uncomment that. And I'm going to do an after template render. So I have all of them here. And after template render, that's going to be my console log. So I've got my before activation, my modifyRequest, my after template render, and my modifyResponse. Now I'm going to go into my dev tools and I'm going to turn off preserve log. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want to lose what this is. So again, context, actually, you know what we could have done, what would probably have been easier, is let me uncomment all of these. Because this is really going to drive the point home that I'm trying to make here. What I really want is I want object.keys from data. So for each one of these, I want to see what data actually has in it. So I'm going to hit save. And sure enough, all of them have the same thing, except for before activation. There is no scope yet. It hasn't been activated yet. Scope is something that happens after it's been activated. So that's the only thing that's not the same. Now, mind you, if I was to go into each one of these objects, request is not going to be the same before it actually made the request. Response is not going to be the same until we actually receive the response. Local overrides is something that's like usually wherever there's a user behavior that modifies the request, we typically bring it into local overrides, and then that gets merged into the request that's being made. Then there's template, which is the data and everything related to the template world. So what the templates do and all that kind of good stuff. And that's part of where I'm going with this. So now what I want to do is I want to come back to set template. And we were talking about earlier data local. Well, not only is there data local in the templates, so I'm going to say product block is the template I want to override. I'm going to override it with something with an ID of Juan. And I don't want it to be quick, but landing in catnav. And again, I'm not supposed to do this as an array. I'm supposed to do this as an object. My custom product block. And it just needs to be something unique. So I'm going to get rid of that and add that. And so now I have my custom thing going here. So now it's expecting to have a script tag with a type equal to template / Klevu and an ID equal to Juan. I'm doing this on purpose because I want to show how simple and straightforward this always is. It's not some mysterious black box thing. It's very, very straightforward. Here, what I want to do is I want to console.log data. There is a data that's available in the templates. And as I showed you guys in a previous video, data local is not always the same thing. If you're in a product block, or if you're in a badge template or something that's product related, data local is almost always like an add to cart template. It's almost always the product itself. And then at that point, you have access to all of the data of the product. But the other templates have other things for data local, or they might not have anything for data local. But one thing that they all have is data, and data is always the same for every single template. Every single template has the exact same data in it. So I want to see what this one is. Object.keys. And this is the Juan template that I'm going to use instead of the product block. And I'm going to hit save. So for every single one of my product blocks now, right? So I have my before activation, which was context request, blah, 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 blah. Then I've got my modify request, blah, 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 blah. And then I've got my modify response, blah, 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 blah. And then I get the templates, and data is not the same thing. Data is something different inside of the templates. Then I get to my after template render, which always runs after the templates have rendered. And then sure enough, I'm back to the same original data that I was earlier. So this time what I want to do is I'm just going to change the last two. So my after template render, I'm going to take off this object.keys. So I'm just going to output data. And then for my template, I'm going to remove the object.keys. And here I'm going to output data. So I'm going to save that. This time, you can see that, and if I just look at the last product, because data is always the same for the templates, settings, suggestions, query, filter, tags, and query IDs, and actually there's more. So it's all of this. But for after template render, it's this other thing. Now here's the thing, the reason why I'm going into so much detail about this. This data is the true data. Like this is the big data. This data is actually something inside of this data. And I'll prove that to you. If I open up template, remember I was telling you that, request is all the request things, response is all the response things, local overrides is the things that are happening. Like for example, if I was to set a filter, that's a user interaction, that's something that I did, then that would be stored under local overrides. That gets merged in with whatever request is, and then the two of them, whatever that output is, that's the request that actually gets made. But template, if I open that up, take a look at what it is. It is filter tags, filter tags. It is landing no result found banners, landing no result found banners, all the way down to suggestions, settings, query IDs, etc., 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 etc. The reason why I'm pointing this out is that when you're rendering a template, there is no need for all the other things that data really is. So you get the subset of just the template related stuff. Now it's very, 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 very similar. If I open up query, and this is for a template, if I open up query, there is a product list. If I open up after template renders data for, what is it? Response, there is a current, this is what we were modifying earlier, there is a query results, and then here is my product list. Now it's inside of an array, but if I look at it, it looks very, very similar. It has filters, it has an ID, and it's product list, it's the same ID, but this one, oh, they both have meta. This one has records. This one has result. This one also has result view. It has sort. It has tab. It has tab text. It's got other things because these are the things that are necessary for the rendering of a template. There's extra things that you need that aren't part of what was actually in the original response itself. Like the original response didn't need any of that extra information because it's not doing anything with it. But that's the reason why there's that middle step of processing the response data. It's taking what did come back, and granted, it takes it after you have modified your data. So we hooked in modifyResponse in the right spot so that whatever changes you make do get processed. And then that's what becomes available for the templates. So if I come back to our example here and I take a look at records and I take a look at, for example, the very first record here, and I take a look at the very first record here, they're going to be very, very similar because it's based on the same data, but potentially there could be a difference in what was actually returned and what actually showed up for the response of, or the data that was available for the rendering of the template. And that's really what I was trying to drill home here, was that there are two versions of the response. One is the original response and what it is, and it's stored in that response object. But then there's the copy of it that's massaged and processed that's inside of the template side of things. And so that's where that is. So having that in mind, I now want to go ahead and do something else. So for example, in our modifyResponse, if I turn this back on, right, I've got my new made up attribute that's being added. And if you notice where it's being added to data template query product list. Okay. It's important that you note where I'm adding that information. So again, data template is, and this is in modifyResponse, so it's not in the template side of rendering data, it's in this other data. So if I was to run this code, I would find it under data template, not response. So data template, and then from there I would go into query. Then from there I would go into product list. And then from there I would go into result. And then I'm iterating through each one of the results, and then one of them, or any of them that happen to have this best-selling Bangladesh in the category, so product category. So if I look at this one, if category has this best-selling Bangladesh somewhere in it, then it will have this new attribute called my made up attribute, which with a value of 999. And right now that does not exist here because I haven't ran this code yet. If I run the code now though, something's wrong with the template maybe. Oh no, it's because I replaced the product block, right, with my custom block. But if I take a look at, and granted, because I have the logging not clearing, I would have to take a look at it again up here. But if I look at after template render, and I look at the response, and I look at current, I look at the queries, I look at the product list, I look at the records, I look at the first one, it does have best-selling Bangladesh, but it doesn't have, oh, hold on. Yes, it does. It does have it. There's my custom attribute. Now, I'm not sure why it added it there. It shouldn't have been there since that's not where I said, but it might be because of the way that that processing happens after I do my modifyResponse. Again, all of that happens beforehand, but if I look at template and I look at query and I look at product list and I look at result and I look at that first one, it does have best-selling Bangladesh, and then there's my attribute. So it is there, and that's what I am expecting when, if I do a modifyResponse, I'm expecting that modification of the response to be there when I'm rendering my template. So if I go to that very first item and I take a look at its query, product list, result, 0. This is the item that's being rendered right now. It does have a my made up attribute with 999 in it. And at that point, I could have did anything I wanted to inside of my template to go do whatever it is that I'm expecting it to do. So I can come in here and, for example, I'm doing data, but I could have said something to the effect of if data local dot, and I can't remember what that attribute's called, but this thing, and I could say something like type of is not equal to undefined. Then I could decide to render some badge that could be anything. So it looks like there's only one product out of all the ones that were returned that happen to have that one category in them. If I go to page number 2, no products have it. Page number 3, no products have it. Page number 4, no products have it. Page number 5, no products have it. Page number 6, and I can keep going because there's 450 products in here. At some point, somebody's going to have it. If I just go to category, I might find it, but nope, I don't find it because it's not one of the top. Again, it's not doing it alphabetically, it's doing it by the number of results. And if you notice, we've already gotten down to just 2 in that top 10. So chances are that Bangladesh, it doesn't have 3, or else it would have been in here. It doesn't have, 7 or 14 or any of that stuff. It might have 2. It literally might have 2. But, who knows which number that other product is going to be in. But anyway, more than likely, it's probably just 1. I could have picked any other attribute. I could have looked for, like tags machine, right? So I could do the same exact thing that I'm doing here. Modify this to where instead of category, it's tags, and just be looking for machine. Now, I don't know if in the data, if I look at the tags, this one is machine, and it is lowercase, so just checking. I could do the same kind of thing now, and chances are there's probably going to be more products. Yep, there's another one. So on page 3, there is one. There's a few on page 4. There's a whole bunch more on page 5. More on page 7. Now, mind you, every single time that I go to a different page, that I trigger, and then I go through this sequence of events, I am re-rendering all of the templates. It might look like it's just appending more stuff, but if I go backwards, it's removing. Not removing, it's actually being re-rendered, and this is the truth based on every single product block that's being rendered. Eventually I'll get to where there's only one, and then here there was none. Here there was only one. That's how simple. It's not magical. It's very simple. It's very predictable, but that's how the data works. That's how the template side of things works. So anyway, so I just wanted to explain this data phenomenon, that there are 2 different datas. There's one data inside of the after template renders and the modifyRequest and before activation. Granted, the data looks different at different moments in time, but it is the same data. It's just being updated based on etc., right? Whatever the case might be. But in the world of templates, data is not the same thing. It is part of what data is in all of the other ones, but it's not the exact same thing. And again, it's only because templates only need to render what they need to render.